Welcome to the Alan Elkan interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
Today we host Claudio Pagliara, who for the Italian audience doesn't need any presentation, but will say anyway. He has been a newspaper journalist for a while, and he came into the RAI, which is the Italian television. He went to Paris to work when he was young, and then he had very prestigious job because he was responsible in Jerusalem. He lived in Jerusalem for many years, almost 10 years. He was responsible for the Middle East. And then for 5 or 6 or 7 years, he went to China. He went in Beijing. And he was covering China, Japan, Southeast Asia. And then from there, he went to cover New York, Washington, and the United States, which is an unbelievable experience that not many people have. And therefore, he obviously deserved the job he has now, since the autumn, the fall, to be the director of the Italian Cultural Institute in New York, who covers also somehow Washington and certainly Philadelphia and other parts of that part of the United States. So, Claudio, what remains of this incredible journalistic experience that you have over the years? I mean, you have been a long time outside of Italy. You wrote books also. I mean, let's go Jerusalem, for instance, and the Middle East, who are at the moment such an important spot. And the world is worrying so much about what's going on there. Do you have a reading of that? I imagine you still have, even if you are at the Italian Institute, the head of the Italian Institute of Culture.
Alan, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored to be your guest today. Having traveled around the world, I think what remains to me is a knowledge of the people, when people are happy and when they suffer, because we are used to see news. We are so used to see destroyed house in Gaza, in Ukraine. But behind that, there is human stories. What really remain me and give me some hope for the future. And that in any conflict zone where I was, there is people that suffer, but people that hope that the future will be better. And I do believe that the vast majority of people in any conflict zone, they want peace. So we need leaders that make choices toward peace. This is my commitment all along my life in Jerusalem, in Beijing for human rights, of course, and of course in New York, Washington, where I've been foreign correspondent as journalist. I tell you, Alan, even today, as director of Italian Cultural Institute, my best hope is to build bridges among cultures, bring bridges among people that now are in conflict. But we have to look back at the European history and hope that what we managed to do, at least till, unfortunately, the 24th of February of 2022, when we had the beginning of a big war in Europe. So the peace in Europe can be achieved even in Middle East. As difficult it seems today, I do believe in that because I know the people, I know the majority of the people who want peace and the vast majority. So leaders at the end will appear and they will make the right choices.
Because you think that leaders understand what people want? I mean, sometimes they're very far from the people. I mean, the political world sometimes seems to be very far from the reality of people and for the very needs of people, right? Do you think that the politicians we have today around the world are of a sufficient quality to understand that and achieve what you hope and what you see in the future?
Of course, not all the leaders that are in power today, they want peace. But I think we have to believe when they say we want to bring peace. I don't want to enter in American politics, but I just read the declaration. I followed all the Trump campaign, for example. President Trump, all along his campaign, has promised to his people that he will put an end to the wars in Gaza and in Ukraine. In Gaza, partially succeeded, but of course, the situation is still very hot. And in Ukraine, so far, he has not succeeded, but he pushed forward. And I see in Europe leaders like our President Meloni who want to achieve peace and build bridges. Italy, as you know, it's one of the most supported countries to try to alleviate the sufferance of Gaza people with humanitarian helps. So this is very important. I think, of course, there are leaders that they don't want peace, and they did act of war. They attacked brutally and without any excuse. I think Russia toward Ukraine attacked Ukraine and brutally, and we can't forget the 7th of October when Hamas attacked in a very unprecedented way Israel and started this war that cost so much to the Palestinian people and Israeli, but the Palestinian people paid a very high prices. So I think there are, of course, evil on the world, but I'm optimistic, Alan. What I have to tell you, I'm optimistic. I'm wake up always every day, hoping in some good news. Most of the time I'm disappointed, but sometimes something good happens. So let's hope, and not only hope, let's act. Each one can do something toward peace. So we must do it.
You change, right? You didn't change yourself, but you changed job in a way. I mean, you have been a very active journalist and passionate, and you have done so much in the past. Italians know you very well, know your face, because you were constantly in TV, unfortunately, as you said, sometimes for very bad things and tough things. But now the Minister of Culture, your Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has nominated you director of the New York and Washington and Philadelphia Italian Institute of Culture. I mean, not everybody knows that there are very few people that are chosen for their fame. I mean, you were not a professional diplomat, so you were picked up as a famous person, a cultural person, I mean, a figure. In Italian, it's called chiara fama because of your fame, right? And obviously, it must be difficult to say no, thank you, because this is a very appealing and interesting job, and the change may be for a while in your career. So why is it so interesting? And especially, sorry to add, especially in such an important cultural place like New York, I mean, which is probably one of the most important cultural places in the world.
Yes, Alan, I'm so grateful to have been chosen by our Foreign Minister, Antonio Tajani, for this position. And since the first day, I put all the energy on this new job. The mission is very simple and difficult at the same time. Simple because what I have to do, I have to bring what I think one of the best things that Italy has, culture, our heritage, our contemporary cultures. That's very important. In the culture, that it's I will explain. It's very wide concept for me. To United States, to New York, and New Yorkers and Americans, we know very well they love Italy. They love sometimes, and they know sometimes Italy better than us. They come every year, and they every year visit different places. So it's simple. It's difficult, of course, because we have to try to make this mission effective. Leave a sign in a city like New York, which is the capital of culture in the world. So we have big competitions every evening, and New Yorker can just give a look to Lincoln Center program and have such great choices. So we have to bring excellence in our institute with some vision, because the first mission, and this maybe it's a little bit revolutionary, I don't want to bring or offer Italian culture only to the Italians who live here. They already know that I'm very happy that they keep on coming in our institute. But the first mission is to enlarge the love for Italian culture among Americans. That's the important thing. In fact, all our events are in English because we want to catch the American public. And so what I did, it's to try to to change a little the program in a way that would be more appealing for Americans, and to bring and elevate the quality of the people that are invited to speak or to perform or to present a book here in the Institute. The first signs are very good, so I'm happy. Of course, I'm not never in my life I've been completely happy. So there is we can always do better. And it's very important, the cooperation of all the Italian system, we call it, means the embassy in Washington, D.C., the consul general in New York, and there are, and as you said, even Boston and Philadelphia that are under my jurisdictions. So I try to build, and I found the people very interested in this system to have an impact in the United States. We know that we have a very good stuff to propose, and I think we will see what's going on. But most important is to fight even against some stereotypes that still there are in New York. So we had in the past great women and men of culture, Michelangelo, Dante, so many, Raphael, that now the Met is dedicated an important exhibition. But we are a contemporary country who innovate in each field, in technology, which is part of our culture, and of course in the literatures, in the cinema, in the music. So we want to show that Italy is still what, and then our past is our chromosome, our gene that allow.
Since you started this new job, I'm sorry to ask you, but people don't necessarily know. What did you do at the Institute? What happened? And what is going to happen? Because that's also interesting to know. What have you been doing practically in these months that you have been there?
Yes, Alan. So first of all, I invented some new format, which is very important because we can do things not linked to each other. So one format that has been very successful so far is called The Courage to Dream. What does it mean? I invited scientists, Italian scientists that reached here a very high position. I invited Gioia Rao. She's an amazing astrophysic that worked for NASA and now still work in connection between the private and the public sector to space exploration. I brought here in the Institute for a conference, very successful, Luciano Floridi, the head, a co-founder of the Ethics Center of the Yale University. And I will bring now Elena Aprile, who is an amazing scientist in Grassasso. She's studying the obscure matter, which is so important because it's the glue that takes together the universe. So Italians that are really at the front line of innovation and research. On the literature, I invented a new format that is going to happen at the end of March. I invited here in New York the 10 winners of the most important Italian literature prizes 2025, and they will rejudged again by a jury who is an American jury with, of course, understanding of Italian because they have to read Italian books. And I call this prize Super Book. there is a reason, because I want to give to Americans the idea that this is the Super Bowl of the book. Because it's the price of the prizes. I invented another format which want to celebrate 250 years of United States, which coincide with 250 years of friendship between Italians and Americans. So I invented the format called Ink Waves. And I'm going to invite in New York 4 Italian established writers and 4 American established writers, but they are not going to talk about their own books. Each one will tell which kind of book or author of the other country has influenced their way to write. This is the way to, I imagine, to
create the
bridge between the two city and the two countries, which are so important for both.
The United States, and you know that very well because of your previous job, it's very important for Italy and for many of the Western countries. I mean, America is America. What is, besides the sympathy, the natural sympathy, and then there are also many Italians and Italo-Americans in America, but what is so attractive? What attracts so much the Italians to America and the Americans to Italy? Did you understand which is the fil rouge of this friendship? Of this natural friendship, whatever political regime or political leaders there are, this is a very old link.
Yeah, I think come from the South. Maybe the reasons are not exactly symmetric. I think Americans love Italy for our culture, our food.
Food is part of culture, isn't it?
Of course. Our cities, and let's say, even for our language. But we have, I don't like to say the best language of the world, but this language has been, not by chance, has given, it was the language of music, of opera, and great poet and artist. The sound, the way that Italian act are very friendly, and the American loves all that. Italians love America, I think, because they found here what, in a certain way, it's more difficult to find in Italy. Opportunities for young. And really, okay, the American dream, I don't know if certain times I hear people saying, now the American dream is not anymore there. But if I encounter young artists or young researchers that keep on coming, and maybe at the beginning, New York is so expensive, crazy for apartment, for food. They may live in a small room with another 2 people, but they say, okay, here I know if I have the qualities, if I have the strength to keep on doing what I want to do, I will realize my dream. So I think still America is a land of opportunity, and the Italians love young men. They love to come here to find this kind of opportunities. As Italy, we should not think that as cervelli in fuga, so people that are very good that go away from our country, but we should be concerned to try to make Italy attractive, because after an experience in the United States, these young people could come back in Italy with this experience and make Italy even better in many fields. And I think mainly in the scientific research. Okay, we don't have the infrastructure of the United States, but why we should consider a researcher with experience in the United States coming back in Italy like, okay, you were in the United States the last 10 years, now you are the last of the list. No, we have to recognize the experience, the abilities of these researchers, and give them a good salary in order to come back to Italy and to proceed in their dream and their career in our country. I hope that I think this is very well understood in Rome, and I think that, there will be steps to try to attract again people that came here to have an experience in the United States.
Yeah, but
each Italian that I met, he loves the idea that one day we'll be back in Italy, because, they have opportunities, but there is a deep love of their own country. So try Italy to make this happening because it's very important for our economic development.
But you talked about Italy. Italy is also Italian, the language. You said it's a very beautiful language. I think that one of the duties, or at least the activities of the Italian Institute of Culture, is to develop the knowledge of the Italian language also, no? And how is the response? You know, once upon a time, people in Europe wanted to know German and French. Then English became the Esperanto language of the world. Maybe you have a great experience. People should learn Chinese nowadays. But what about Italian?
Italia, we of course like Italian Culture Institute. This is a mission of the Italian Culture Institute, as you underline. And we have a partner that inside the Institute take classes for Americans that want to learn Italian. Sometimes I speak with these students, which are, of course, special students because they have all the ages that you can imagine, young, even old. And sometimes I ask them, why do you want to speak Italian? And it's funny because in many cases, it's not because they they want to live in Italy or they have an Italian boyfriend or girlfriend. No, sometimes they say because they want to go to see the foreigns and enjoy the beauty of the language when they explain the art that we find there, the Renaissance. We want to understand your beauty in your language. I want to go to a restaurant and order a meal in your language. So it's love for the language. It's really important. But I did another program which is very successful because we have children here from Italian parents that study in American schools. Of course, they lose the ability or use Italian mainly in the reading. So I invented the program on Saturday morning. It's called Reading in Italian. I played with the word. Actually, it's my assistant, Malina Mannarino, lead this program. And we invited these children from 6 to 12-year-old to read children books in Italian. And every Saturday we are growing because there is this need for parents that have kids, Italian parents that have kids in American school to be sure that their kids won't lose the ability of use the lingua di Dante, how we say in Italian, the Dante language.
Claudio, you have the feeling that you can, in this 2 or 4 years you have in front, that you can really do something important, right, for Italy and for the knowledge of what's going on in the Italian world, outside of some old-fashioned stereotypes. That's your mission, right?
That's my mission. Of course, I'm not going to say neither now or in 4 years that I succeeded. I do prefer to get the feedback of the others when it's a judgment about my job. What I can guarantee is to you, Alan, that I'm really putting all my energy on this mission. And the goal is actually the one that you said, and we will see. So far, I see our social media growing, because, of course, as a journalist, I put a very great effort in being on the social media. I have some good feeling that I can even enter in some initiative on the American press, the important American press. I'm making an effort on this direction because I think it's important. If I bring here authors, Italian authors that are already well known in Italy, I don't need only Corriere della Sera, Repubblica. I need New York Times, New Yorker. So I'm trying hard to...
So maybe with your previous job, you made, not in the United States and in other countries, as we said, a network of people who you know and admire or admire your work, and therefore you can bring them better to what you do, I guess.
The key, Alan, is to understand how important is communication. This is very understood now from our foreign minister. They push us to invest in communication. Of course, with me, that I'm a journalist, it's very easy to convince me that this is the direction.
No, but journalism, not the journalist, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, journalism nowadays is not going through a very easy period. People read everywhere less and less newspapers. Journalism has changed in a way, So this is another thing. And strangely enough, if newspapers sell less, and you were right to talk about writers and things like that, because books keep on selling quite well. I mean, people still read books. And I read in a paper or somewhere that you're also giving a lot of importance to the library of the Institute, to have probably the most important Italian library or Italian books in New York. Is it true?
Thank you, Alan, to underline this part of my project. Yes, we have 30,000 books, some of them even rare and important, of course, not easy to find the place. And we have the chance to have in front of the Institute, which is in Park Avenue, you know very well, because you have been many times the host of our Institute, and I hope that you will come again soon. In front of the Institute, there is Hunter College.
Yes.
There are thousands of students there. And I spoke with the Italian department there. They have a very, very little library. So I said, look, bring your students in our library. They can enjoy the place. They can enjoy the building, which is much better than the Hunter, because architecturally speaking, our building is very beautiful. They have a library, they have a room for them, and they will be glad to have young people coming in the daytime to study and I try to revitalize our library. A news that I can give you, we are planning to have on the Institute an art, cinema, and music reviews hemeroteca, because we don't have yet, but we will have in the future. And I want to use even the contemporary advanced technology like iPad connected by internet to some library, that people that can maybe come and read what is relevant for them, either art or literature or whatever, cinema, on the Institute. This is a big project, because if I succeeded in this, I will really bring a lot of new people and what I need, and people that are interested in Italian culture. So that's what I'm trying to move forward.
You have very good relationships, not only with Italy, of course, but also with the Italian or kind of Italian various cultural institutions and universities and museums, and in New York, in Washington, Boston, in Philadelphia.
Yes, Alan. First of all, of course, with the Italian institutions, we have the new Consul General, Giuseppe Pastorelli, who is amazing, because he comes from, was vice director of the department of the foreign minister in place for promoting Italy. So I couldn't have a better partner. And in Washington, the ambassador Marco Peronacci, I had the chance to know him already 25 years ago in Paris when I was foreign correspondent. He was working on the Italian embassy in Paris in the cultural field. So that's very important, would say, system that we are creating here in New York. We are going all in the same direction, each one with their own mission, but the direction is very clear for all of us. And of course, I have a very good relation with the university. I'm building new relations, even going in the coming days in Boston, in Philadelphia, to meet Italians, professors and artists, whatever, that live in these two important, very important cities. So Boston means Harvard.
In Philadelphia, there is a very large Italian community.
Yeah, the community. So it's important the Institute bring, for example, the writers that I spoke to you, they will speak on the Institute, but they will speak in the university as well. We will bring these writers in the different university, and not only in New York area. We will bring in Boston, in Philadelphia as well. And with Philadelphia is very important, the cooperation, because 250 years of America see Philadelphia central, of course, for the history of the United States. So we are trying to partner in some project that will shed light on the important Italians that influence the history of the United States. That's really important, to have a network of relation, to build together with the Americans lover of Italy, a big family. I see the institute like a family house with many different events, but always very open. Very open.
Tell me something now, going for a second out of the door of the Institute because of your experience. I have two main questions to ask you. Are the United States, on your point of view, abandoning Europe?
No, I don't think so at all. I even wrote in my book about Trump presidency, l'imperatore in Italian. I think what has changed, it's not America, but the world. The world now became more multipolar, and we can't forget that the United States has two oceans, Atlantic and Pacific. And the importance for the United States has shifted, not with Trump administration, but already with Obama administration, from Atlantic to Pacific, because it's there in the Pacific that are growing the real big competitor of United States, China, which has a political, ideological system at the opposite of democracy and things. So when I think there is this pressure on Europe to invest more in their security, in its security, I think it's the result of this shift of interest of United States, which is not linked to a president, but is a historic shift. Pacific now is much more important, and the eyes of America has been in the last 20 years more and more on what happened in China and around China. America's important allies there has Japan, South Korea. Everybody knows that Taiwan could be a very big problem because China reclaim as part of its territories, but in the last 8 years, Taiwan has been independent, and in the last 30 years has built an amazing, a very vibrant democracy, so antithetic with China. So there is really huge problems that are far from what we usually daily speak about. But America has two oceans, so he has to look on both sides, and now is more important Asia, where even population and say the richness is growing, and America think that Europe has resources to do something better
by itself.
That before was on the shoulders of the United States.
So the big thing is, you know them both very well, even if you did devote your life to Italy, which is very nice and important. You very well know that the game is between China and the United States. Who is going to be the most powerful? Who is going to find, we know that. Are you afraid of that? You said this about America has two oceans, which is very clear, and it has been the same sadly during the last war, the Second World War. There was a war in the Pacific and there was a war in Europe. And most of the time, Europeans don't think about that there was a Pacific and so on and so forth. So what do you think about this? Because you are an optimist. You're not reading things as a drama, but you have a tendency to be optimist, right?
I'm optimist, but of course I'm not blind, okay? So we are in a period of time very dangerous, that's for sure. Conflicts, it's much more easy to start a new conflict than to close the old ones. And two popes the actual popes and Francesco spoke about the Third Great War in pieces. And I think it could be already started, so we have to stop it. But it's not easy. The competition of China and the United States is global, of course. It's not only economy. It's about important natural resources that are, at the end, what make a country prevailing in the technological field. And these resources are spread everywhere, from Ukraine, South America, Taiwan. You see, it's a dangerous time. And that's the reason that I'm very worried. But still, I hope that the worst won't happen. What has already happened is already very bad.
And as an Italian, as a cultural responsible now, you said very well. I mean, there are other people like you in the world. There was, in Italy, I remember well, Cardinal Martini, for instance, or in Jordan, Prince Hassan bin Talal, or people like that. There are many people who like bridges, understand the importance of conversation, of diplomacy, of culture, right? And you obviously are one of them. Obviously, people of peace, as you said at the beginning of our conversation. There is one thing which we didn't mention, maybe, is that one quality is common sense that doesn't seem to be very popular at the moment in the world. But Italy has a prerogative of common sense. I mean, the Italians are people and their culture of common sense. Am I wrong?
No, I think you are right, and not just because I'm Italian. So I like the idea that we are common sense, but we are even peace builders, no? In the last 70, 80 years, we have always tried to build peace. And maybe not everybody knows that Italy is the most important contributor to peacekeepers around the world. We have an important mission in Lebanon, very dangerous for our soldiers that are there, because it's the fire is there. During the war, the recent war, they were even put on the crossfires directly. But we are there. We are not so many places in the world, because at the end we are perceived like people that really genuinely want peace, but both sides in conflict. And that's really what we should be proud of us.
So your Institute of Culture in New York, in Park Avenue, is a world of Italian cultural and American cultural gathering, a great library for people who want to read in Italian. And we encourage eventually people to send or give books to your library to make it bigger, but it's also a place of peace.
Yes, and we fight against discriminations and racism, which is another part of the story. The January 27, the world has celebrated the Giorno della Memoria.
January 27, the day of
Holocaust remembers. We are witness of an unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism around the world, not just words, even aggressive acts. In fact, I organized 3 events for this day during a week to remember what happened on the Holocaust during the Shoah. That must be remembered. And on the consulate, we read up, as every year, all the names of the Jews that were deported in Auschwitz during the Fasci-Nazism era. But I did even a panel about old and new faces of anti-Semitism, because, you can have every judgment about a government. You can be anti-government in Italy, but you are not anti-Italians or anti-Catholic. You can be, I don't know, against the government of Britain. You are not against the British people. So the only state that, you can legitimately be against how the Israeli government reacted at the 7th October, but this doesn't allow you to say all the Jews are responsible and they deserve to be boycotted, aggressed, and they can't anymore speak on public places. This is a very serious story. We have to clearly say that this is not allowed in Italy anymore, because unfortunately it's bringing Jews in Italy, which have been for 2,000 years part of our community. They are bringing the memory of what happened in 1938, where suddenly racial law put the Jews in Italy in another part. They said, no, you are not Italian. You can't attend the schools. You can't work. That's really serious. I think we can't minimize what is going on. So that's another mission that we try to bring to show that Jewish Italian culture is very important, and not just because of the Shoah, but because there is writers, there are artists, there is a vibrant community in many Italian cities. And I want to represent this reality. I think it's an important mission that I have in these times of very worrying rise of anti-Semitism all around the world.
Especially because Roman Jews are probably the eldest Jewish community outside Israel, Palestine, in the world, right? I mean, it's a very, very old community that exists since Titus, even before.
Exactly. The origin is very well known. When Tito destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem, brought Jews in Rome. So it's 2,000 years. And it's the oldest community of the diaspora, but has built, special culture. He has given an amazing contribution during the Risorgimento. They participate to our Risorgimento, the Jews. So they help us, the Italians that believe in Italy. They were Italians and of religions, tradition or religion. But as the other Italian are Catholic, and maybe now there are many Italians Muslim, but they are Italians. That's the question. We can't discriminate among Italians. Like a Italian Muslim or a Catholic Italian have the right to speak on the university, why a Jew should be prevented by speaking in university, as happened by pro-Palestinian students and sometimes even teachers. This in Italy shouldn't be any room for that.
But that's a very deep and profound lesson for a cultural person. So, Claudio, good luck. Thank you very much for this conversation, and we wish you, of course, all the best. Thank you,
Alan. I really thank you for having me. It was really an honor.
For me too. Thank you, Claudio.
Alan Elkan interviews.